Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let your arms go heavy, your breath slow. And as you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing what time it is, where you are, and what city or village you're listening from. It's love to know. And if you'd like more quiet stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe so they gently appear when you need them most. Now, let's begin. Beneath the quiet of modern streets, beneath the hills and rivers of the United Kingdom, the land itself carries memory. It is not the memory of words or images, but of weight, of immense, unrelenting weight. For thousands of years, during the long chill of the last ice age, Britain was smothered beneath ice, not a thin crust, not a dusting of snow, but vast glaciers stretching for miles. Imagine standing at the edge of one. The ice towered above you, thicker than any mountain. Its surface stretched to the horizon, gleaming pale in the weak northern sun. This ice was not gentle, pressed downward with the force of entire oceans. Every hill, every valley, every fault in the earth's crust bent beneath it. The land was pushed into the mantle below, as though the very earth were breathing in under the burden. Today, that ice is gone. It melted away more than 10,000 years ago, retreating northward, pouring its water into rivers, into seas, into the swelling Atlantic. The glaciers vanished, but the weight they left behind still lingers, because stone does not forget quickly. Think of the ground beneath your feet as something living. It does not shatter easily, but it bends slowly, responds to pressure, to weight, to time. The ice pressed down, the earth sank. When the ice melted, the earth began to rise. This slow rising, this gentle rebound, is still happening now. You might imagine the land as still, solid, final. But in truth, it moves imperceptibly, like a chest rising and falling with breath. The United Kingdom exhales in stone and soil, lifting itself back toward balance. Scotland remembers the weight most deeply. There, the ice was thickest, piled high across the highlands, stretching down across lochs and lowlands. Even today, the north is rising by millimeters each year, carried upward by the earth's own resilience. The south, by contrast, feels the opposite. As the north lifts, the south slowly tips downward, like a seesaw adjusting its balance. The Thames, the Somerset levels, the low coasts of East Anglia, they all lean subtly toward the sea. The weight of forgotten ice is still shaping the future. Pause and imagine. This movement, in slow motion, over centuries, cliffs rise imperceptibly. Valleys deepen as rivers carve new paths. Shorelines retreat, not because of storms, but because the ground itself leans forward. What feels permanent is not. What feels still is always in motion. Science gives this process a name: glacial isostatic adjustment. It sounds clinical, almost mechanical, but what it describes is deeply human, because it is the landscape we live within. Cities rest on tilting ground. Villages rise with the north or sink with the south. Rivers and coastlines respond to motions too, slow for the eye to see. This is the inheritance of ice, and though you cannot feel it, instruments can. Satellites far above, steady in orbit, watch the land breathe. Their measurements reveal the story in numbers. Scotland lifts by nearly a millimeter each year. The south tips into the sea by almost the same amount. It sounds small. A millimeter is thinner than a fingernail. But across centuries, it is enough to redraw maps, enough to swallow villages, enough to change where rivers flow, where harbors survive, where people call home. The forgotten ice left more than weight. It left scars. Meet the soil. Rocks hold grooves carved by the grinding glaciers. Valleys stretch in long U-shapes, their geometry written by ice. Lakes and lochs mark where glaciers once dug deep, leaving basins that later filled with water. When you stand on a cliff in Scotland, When you walk along a broad valley floor, when you watch the tide roll into a drowned estuary, you are not just seeing the present. You are seeing the work of forgotten ice. There is poetry in this persistence. The glaciers are gone, melted into seas, but their presence lingers in every stone, every tilt of land, every ripple of coastline. The past does not vanish. It simply changes form. Think of the human memory of ice. Ancient myths, carved into stories, spoke of giants and gods reshaping the land. People did not know of glaciers, but they knew the valleys were strange. The rocks carried from far off places. They sensed that something vast had once been here. Now, science gives words where myth gave poetry, but the awe remains the same. To know that the earth itself can sink beneath weight, and then lift itself slowly back up, is to know that nothing is ever truly still. The lifting is not violent. It is not sudden. It does not crash or roar. It is slow, patient, inevitable. It is the rhythm of deep time. Every year, the north rises, the south tips. Every century, the tilt grows more clear. Every millennium, the shape of the island changes, and all of this comes from ice that has been gone for thousands of years. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine Britain as it once was, covered in white, silent, except for the groaning of ice. Then imagine it today: green hills, busy cities, quiet rivers. The ice is gone, but the memory remains. Beneath your feet, the land is still adjusting, still remembering. The earth does not forget quickly, and as you hold that thought, you begin to sense what lies beneath the surface. Stone that bends like memory, mantle that flows like taffy, pressure that redistributes itself quietly in the dark. For if the land itself remembers, then surely the rocks beneath hold the deepest scars. Asterisk stone appears unchanging. You look at a cliff, and it seems eternal. You walk across a mountain ridge, and it feels immovable. Stone gives the illusion of permanence, but beneath that illusion is memory. Not memory in words or pictures, but memory written in structure, in cracks, in folds, in scars. Stone remembers weight. It remembers pressure. It remembers time. During the Ice Age, Britain lay beneath glaciers miles thick. The ice pressed down with unimaginable force. Every grain of sand, every layer of bedrock felt the weight. The crust bent like wood beneath a burden, sagged, pressing into the soft mantle below. It yielded slowly, but it did not forget now. Millennia after the ice is gone, the stone still remembers. It continues to rise, releasing the pressure, healing emotions too slow for eyes to see. Imagine the earth's crust as something not brittle, but flexible, a vast, stony skin resting upon molten depths. When pressed, it bows. When released, it lifts. This is isostacy, the balance of weight and buoyancy. As if continents float like rafts upon a deep, unseen sea. Stone is heavy, but the mantle beneath flows. Like honey spread thick and patient, the mantle moves under pressure, supporting, shifting, yielding. And when the glaciers melted, the mantle began to return what had been taken. The stone rose. Rock carries these memories in visible ways. Walk through the Scottish Highlands. You see valleys carved into wide U-shapes, walls smoothed by ice, floors flattened where glaciers once crept. Look at boulders resting in odd places, mismatched with a local stone. These are erratics carried for miles on the backs of glaciers, then left behind when the ice retreated. Each is a memory, a marker of where the ice once pressed. But stone holds invisible memories too. Deep beneath the surface, crystals align with stress. Layers fold, faults shift, and subtle changes mark where pressure once lay. Scientists read these signs like archivists reading old parchment. They trace the bends, the cracks, the silent records, etched into rock. And from these records, they learn. The land is still healing from ancient weight. Consider the ground beneath your feet now. To you, it feels solid. But if you could wait, not years, but centuries, you would see it breathe. Rocks, slowly lifting, releasing their memory of ice. Mountains rising a fraction, coastlines tilting a degree. Stone remembers, hand stone moves. Memory in stone is not just vertical, spreads outward, reshaping the very fabric of land. When the north of Britain lifts, the south tips downward. When one valley rebounds, another river bends its course. The scars of ice ripple outward, rearranging the landscape long after the glaciers have vanished. There is humility in this thought. Stone feels final to you, but to the earth, stone is as fluid as clay. Mountains rise, plains sink, cliffs crumble, valleys widen. It is only your short life that makes stone seem still in truth. It is always remembering, always adjusting, always finding balance again. Think of a piece of wood bent beneath weight. Remove the burden, and the wood slowly straightens. It may never return fully, but it finds a new shape, a compromise between past and present. So it is with stone, the weight of forgotten ice bent it down. The release of that weight lets it rise, okay? But it does not return to what it was. It becomes something new, a land reshaped, a balance altered. Even now, instruments measure this rebound. GPS stations fix 2 bedrock record movement each year. The numbers are small millimeters at most, but steady, reliable, undeniable. Stone is rising. Stone is remembering. Stone is healing. In this healing lies another kind of memory. The fossils, the sediments, the buried landscapes that emerge as the land shifts. As the north rises, old shorelines are revealed. Beaches lifted far above today's seas still cling to cliffs. Fossil beaches, silent records of where the ocean once touched as the south tips. Estuaries widen, swallowing farmland, reminding you that stone's memory is not only in the past, but also in the future it creates. Rock remembers, even in silence. The ground beneath the cathedral, beneath the village, beneath your own home. It's not fixed. It is rising, falling, tilting, shifting. It remembers a weight long vanished. It adjusts, inch by inch, quietly, endlessly. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine yourself standing in a highland valley. The air is cool. The mountains rise around you. Beneath your feet, stone is lifting. It does not announce itself. It does not hurry. It simply remembers. And in that memory lies a story not only of the north, but of how the land rises most where the weight was greatest. Scotland, once buried deepest, is now climbing most of all. The north, in its patience, is the first to rise. Asterisk, the memory of ice is written across the whole of the United Kingdom. But the north carries the deepest scars, and it is the north that rises first. When the last ice age reached its peak, Scotland was buried beneath glaciers that dwarfed mountains. Ice pressed into valleys, grinding against granite, scouring ridges into smooth packs. The highlands, now sharp and exposed, were once muted beneath the weight of frozen miles. Locks formed as the ice carved deep basins, gouging the stone, dragging boulders like pebbles. Locks, fjords, and wide valleys are the fingerprints left. Behind Scotland bore the greatest burden. And now, millennia later, Scotland lifts most strongly. The rise is not dramatic. You cannot see it in a day or even a lifetime. But year by year, millimeter by millimeter, the north rises toward the sky. Scientists measure it with patience. Satellites above trace each tiny adjustment, recording the Earth's slow breath. The numbers tell a story. Scotland is rebounding, faster than the rest of the island. It is as though the land itself is stretching, easing stiffened joints, remembering what it is to be free of weight. Imagine standing on the shore of a highland loch. The water seems eternal, the mountains unmoving. But in truth, the entire landscape is shifting upward, ever so slightly. The loch does not notice. The mountains do not announce it. But the ground beneath your feet is rising. You are part of a motion too vast and too slow to feel. Villages sit upon this lifting land. Stone houses built centuries ago rest on foundations that rise imperceptibly. Generations pass, and the people never sense the climb. But the measurements prove it. The ground is not still. Cliffs rise, tilting the coastline. Islands push upward, revealing new beaches where once the sea held sway. The north exhales, slowly, patiently. This rising is called glacial rebound. It is Earth's act of balancing itself. The ice pushed down with such force that the land sank into the mantle. Still released, the land rises to find its place again. Scotland, buried deepest, remembers strongest. It is the first to rise. Think of a cushion pressed beneath a heavy stone. Remove the stone, and the cushion slowly expands. Not all at once, not in silence, but gradually reclaiming its shape. The land behaves the same. The stone was ice. The cushion is the Earth's crust, and the rebound is still unfolding. Even the islands offshore remember. The Hebrides, Orkney, Shetland, each one feels the lifting. Cliffs shift upward, shorelines inch higher. The sea adjusts quietly to the changing tilt of land. It is so subtle that only the patient eye of science notices, but the land itself knows. The earth is moving beneath the waves. There is beauty in the patience of this motion. It does not rush. It does not demand. It simply continues, long after the glaciers have gone, long after human memory has faded. The earth carries on with its lifting. The rise of Scotland also tells a story about the rest of the island, because the earth seeks balance. When one side lifts, another tips. The rebound of the north means the south will sink. The seesaw of Britain tilts around its ancient fulcrum, and the story of the south is written in its own slow descent. But before that story unfolds, pause with the north. Imagine again the highlands, mountains standing against winds, lochs glittering with sky, cliffs dropping into restless seas. All of it is climbing slowly. The very roots of the land are lifting. A burden has been released, and the earth remembers how to breathe. The north rises first, and because of that, the south must answer. Asterisk, the north rises first. Scotland, freed from the deepest weight of ice, lifts itself upward, year by year, millimeter by millimeter. But the earth is not a flat stage. It balances, okay? And when one side of the island rises, the other side must lean. The south slowly sinks. This is not a collapse, not a violent plunge. It is a quiet tipping, a slow seesawing of land. Imagine a raft floating on a lake. Okay. Press down on one end, and the other end rises. Okay. Remove the weight, and the balance reverses. Okay. So too with the British Isles. The ancient ice pressed most heavily on the north. The north sank deep. Now it rebounds upward, and as it rises, the south tilts ever so gently into the sea. Stand on the shores of southern England. The waves roll softly against the beaches of East Anglia. The Thames flows patiently toward its estuary. Cliffs of Kent look sturdy, rooted against the Channel winds. But beneath all this, the ground is shifting. It is not erosion alone that reshapes these coasts. It is the tilt of the entire island, leaning southward. The sinking is subtle, a millimeter each year, sometimes less, sometimes more. So slight that no person can feel it. No, I can watch it in real time. But across centuries, it becomes undeniable. The Thames is one of the clearest signs. Its floodplains have long been wide, its tide strong. But as the south lowers, the sea encroaches further, pressing inland, flooding more often. What once was rare becomes common. What once was safe becomes vulnerable. The Somerset levels, flat and low, are another witness. Here, land lies barely above sea level. Drainage ditches, crisscross fields, remnants of centuries of human effort to keep the land habitable. But as the south tips, the sea presses in. Storm surges reach further. Floods spread wider. The sinking is not sudden, but its patience makes it unstoppable. The cliffs along the southern coast tell their own story. Erosion eats at them, storm after storm, wave after wave. But the slow sinking tips them closer toward the sea, hastening their retreat. Villages that once stood far from the water's edge now find themselves at the brink. Roads end abruptly, in air swallowed by advancing tides. The sinking does not act alone, but it amplifies every storm, every surge, every rise of water. You might think of the island as a tilting table. On one side, the plates and cups the mountains and valleys of the north rise slightly upward. On the other, the contents slowly slide toward the edge, toward the sea. The earth is balancing itself, redistributing the memory of weight, and the south must sink because the north remembers too strongly. Science watches this motion carefully. Satellites, GPS stations, tide gauges each. One records the balance of rise and fall. The pattern is unmistakable. Northward lifting, southward sinking. London is not immune. Though its skyline rises with glass and steel, its foundations lean into an older rhythm. The Thames barrier, built to hold back tides, is already tested more often than its designers once expected. And the future will demand even more defenses as the land continues its slow descent. The South's sinking is not only a story of water, it is also a story of rivers. As the ground tilts, rivers adjust their paths. Some deepen their channels, some broaden their floodplains, some bend into new meanders. Water always seeks the lowest point, and as the land tips southward, the courses of rivers bend in subtle obedience. The Thames, the Severn, the Humber, all are reshaped quietly, generation after generation, by the imperceptible tilt of the island itself. There is humility in this, for people build cities as if the ground beneath them were still. Streets are laid in straight lines. Bridges are rooted in stone. As houses rise with faith in permanence. But the ground is never still. It rises in the north, sinks in the south. It tilts the whole of Britain in a motion older than history. What feels permanent is always in motion. Consider Dover's cliffs, white against the sea. Bave stood for thousands of years, a symbol of endurance. Yet, inch by inch, wave by wave, tilt by tilt, they retreat. The land itself leans into the sea's embrace. It is not defeat, it is balance, The island adjusts, as it always has, as it always will. The sinking south is not an isolated story. All across the world, land once pressed by glaciers is rising, while nearby regions, freed from weight, tilt downward. Scandinavia rises high, while the Baltic tilts. Canada's north lifts, while Hudson Bay tips. The UK is one chapter in a planetary story. The Earth forever balancing, forever remembering. But here, the consequences feel intimate. For those who live along the Thames, along the Somerset levels, along the coasts of Kent and Suffolk, the sinking shapes their future. Floods that once came once a century may come once a decade. Villages may need to retreat. Cities may need to raise walls. The tilt of the island becomes a warning written in water. And yet, it is not only a warning, it is also a reminder that the earth is alive, that the ground is not passive, that land itself is a participant in time, moving, breathing, balancing. You are not simply standing on stone. You are standing on motion. Pause and imagine Britain as a great seesaw. Scotland rises inch by inch. Southern England tips millimeter by millimeter toward the sea. Generations live and die without noticing, but over centuries, the tilt becomes truth. It is the rhythm of isostasy, the Earth's way of healing itself. And in this rhythm lies science, a patient language of measurement and explanation to understand the rising north and the sinking south. Scientists speak of adjustment, of rebound, of balance. They call it glacial isostatic adjustment, a phrase that captures the quiet power of the Earth's memory. It is here, beneath your feet, beneath the Thames, beneath the cliffs of Dover. And it is the story that carries you into what comes next, the science itself, the patient unraveling of how and why the Earth still breathes. After ice, the north rises, the south sinks, the island tilts in silence. But behind this patient motion lies a science, the steady hand of physics, the deep rhythm of geology. Scientists call it glacial isostatic adjustment. The words are long, formal, but what they describe is simple. The Earth seeking balance after weight. Picture the Earth as a vast sphere wrapped in stone. This stone, the crust, feels solid beneath your feet, but beneath it lies something stranger. The mantle. The mantle is not liquid, not solid, but both. It flows slowly like honey spread on a plate, like tar warming under the sun. It yields under pressure, though to human eyes it seems still. When glaciers pressed upon Britain, their miles of ice forced the crust downward. Stone bent, the mantle flowed, the land sank under the burden. Now, without the ice, the mantle pushes back, the crust rebounds. The Earth seeks equilibrium. This is the science of isostasy. Isostasy means balance. It is the principle that continents float on the mantle, like rafts on a deep, invisible sea. Add weight, and the raft sinks. Remove weight, and the raft rises. The same law that makes a boat bob on water shapes the rise and fall of continents. Imagine pressing your hand against a cushion. Its cushion yields, its fabric stretching, its stuffing displaced. Lift your hand, and the cushion slowly regains its shape. Not all at once, but gradually, as the fibers relax. This is isostatic rebound. Hand is the glacier, the cushion is the crust. The slow return is the Earth healing. But why does it take so long? Why, after 10,000 years, is the land still moving? The answer lies in the mantle's patience. It flows, but it flows slowly. Its currents take centuries to shift. Its adjustments measured not in days, but in millennia. The Earth moves at the speed of stone. Scientists measured this rebound in millimeters each year, so little that a single lifetime barely sees it. But across generations, the motion becomes profound. Coastlines shift. Floodplains widen. Mountains lift their heads a little higher. The slowness is deceptive. It ties the immensity of what is. Happening there is beauty in this patience, because it means the Earth is not brittle. It bends, it flexes, it recovers. The scars of glaciers are not left open. The land heals, though on a timescale so vast that human lives pass like moments. Within it, glacial isostatic adjustment does not happen evenly. The places with the heaviest ice rise the most. Scotland, once buried deepest, climbs higher. The South, once pressed less, sinks by comparison. It is not punishment, it is balance. The seesaw of Britain tilts because the Earth insists on symmetry. This rebound is not unique to Britain. Across the world, the same motion unfolds. In Scandinavia, the land rises faster than almost anywhere else, lifting entire coastlines out of the sea. In Canada, the north rebounds, while Hudson Bay deepens, tilting the continent quietly. In Alaska, in Greenland, in Antarctica today, The same science is unfolding, same balance returning. Everywhere glaciers once pressed, the earth now lifts. And where glaciers remain, the story is still being written. Greenland is still heavy with ice. Antarctica still bows beneath its frozen burden. If those glaciers melt, the rebound will begin anew. The crust will rise. The mantle will flow. The earth will balance once again. It is a cycle as old as ice itself. Scientists see this motion not only in rising land, but in shifting gravity, in tilting shorelines, in rivers that change course. They watch with instruments, with satellites, with the patient eyes of data, and the story they see is always the same. The earth remembers weight, and the earth always seeks balance. There is humility in this science, because it reminds you that the ground beneath your feet is not still. It is floating, bending, adjusting. You walk on crust. You sleep on rebound. You live on memory. Think of how many generations will pass while the land continues to rise. Children born today will live their whole lives without noticing. Their grandchildren will do the same. And still, the rebound will go on. The earth does not hurry. It does not rush to heal. It trusts time. It trusts patience. Even the word adjustment carries calm. It is not violent. It is not destructive. It is gentle, subtle, quiet. The earth adjusts as if shifting in its sleep, seeking comfort after centuries of weight. Pause for a moment and imagine Britain as a raft again. One end pressed downward, the other lifting. The weight removed, the raft slowly, steadily returning to balance. It does not matter if storms strike its surface. It does not matter if people build upon it. The raft adjusts, always, silently, endlessly, and as satellites trace this rebound, as instruments measure its pace, the science becomes more than numbers. It becomes a reminder of perspective. Your life is brief. Your years pass quickly, but the earth moves in rhythms you cannot feel. Glacial isostatic adjustment is one of those rhythms. A heartbeat measured in millennia, a breath too slow to notice, and yet science notices. Science listens. Science records each millimeter, each tilt, each breath of stone. Above the earth, satellites orbit, watching patiently as the island rises and sinks. They are the eyes of the future, measuring the invisible, and they lead you naturally to the next chapter. The patient watchers above, the GPS eyes on the ground. Asterisk, the science of isostatic rebound explains the motion. But how do we know it is happening? How do we measure something so slow, so subtle, so silent? The answer lies above you, a constellation of satellites circling the earth with quiet patience. GPS, you know it as the system that guides you through. Streets have places a blue dot on a glowing map that tells you where you stand. But GPS does more than guide. It listens to the earth itself. It watches the land move. It records the imperceptible. Imagine a network of stations across the UK. Each one is no bigger than a desk. A metal antenna reaches upward, its gaze fixed on the sky. It listens day and night, catching signals from satellites thousands of miles. Above the satellites do not speak loudly. They whisper, sending streams of time-stamped signals. Each pulse carrying precision measured in billionths of a second. The station receives these whispers, compares them, and from them learns its position with remarkable accuracy. Most people use GPS to know where they are, but scientists use GPS to know where the Earth itself is, and where it is going. By comparing decades of data, they can see the land lift by millimeters. They can see the north rise, the south sink, the island tilt in slow, patient balance. Think of it this way. GPS is like a clock that notices the heartbeat of stone. Each tick measures not only where you stand, cool, but how the ground beneath you has shifted since yesterday, since last year, since a generation ago. It is a clock that listens to Earth's breathing. The satellites themselves orbit high above, more than 12,000 miles away, each moving in steady paths. They cross the sky in silent procession, their signals blanketing the planet. You cannot see them, cannot hear them, but they are there, a hidden constellation, guiding, measuring, watching. Pause for a moment and imagine their perspective. From above, the satellites see the whole Earth, continents, oceans, islands, clouds. They do not see people. They do not see cities. They see motion. The crust rising in Scandinavia, the tilt of Canada's Hudson Bay, the rebound of Scotland, the sinking of the Thames. To them, the planet is alive, adjusting constantly, never still. The precision is astonishing. A single GPS station can record a change of just a few millimeters. A sheet of paper is thicker than the motion being measured, and yet the satellites notice dot over years. These tiny numbers grow into undeniable truths. The north is lifting. The south is sinking. The island is breathing. It may seem strange that something as vast as the Earth can be measured by something as distant as satellites. But that is the gift of patience. The satellites do not rush, circle endlessly, always listening, always sending. The stations do not hurry. They receive, they compare, they record, and with enough time, the invisible becomes visible. There is poetry in this watching. The land itself does not know it is being measured. The cliffs rise, the valleys tilt, the rivers bend, all unaware of the gaze above. And yet, quietly, the satellites bear witness. The story of the Earth's adjustment with a calm more patient than any human life. Consider what this means for the UK, a nation often imagined as stable, as fixed, as rooted in history and stone, is shown by satellites to be restless, it's changing, alive. Each village, each river, each coast is part of a shifting map. The blue dot on your screen may seem fixed, but in truth, it drifts, carried along with the tilt of the land. Scientists turn this data into maps. Maps not of roads or rivers, but of motion. Arrows point upward in the north, downward in the south. The entire island is drawn not as still, but as breathing. It is a portrait of memory, record of how the Earth recovers from the forgotten ice. And yet, even this science holds mystery. The satellites can measure the rebound, but they cannot rush it, Kate. They can only watch, year after year, generation after generation. As the land continues its slow return, it is patience meeting patience, stone moving, satellites measuring, both indifferent to hurry. There is something deeply human about this search for measurement. We cannot feel the earth rise, cannot hear it lift, but we long to know. We build machines to listen for us, to notice what our senses cannot, and through them, we learn that the ground beneath us is never still. Pause for a moment and imagine yourself lying on a hillside in the north. The grass sways in wind. The loch glitters in weak sunlight. You close your eyes. Above you, satellites cross the sky. Their signals fall like invisible rain. You do not feel it, okay? You do not hear it. But through them, scientists know that even as you rest, the hillside itself is rising. You are being lifted, imperceptibly, toward the sky. This is the science of patience, of listening to silence, of watching change. Too slow to see. GPS turns the imperceptible into knowledge. It proves that the island moves, that the land adjusts, that memory in stone is real. And from this knowledge comes the next truth, that as the land lifts, water must obey. Rivers respond, channels shift, valleys transform. The rising of the north, the sinking of the south, reshapes the flow of water itself. And so the next chapter begins with rivers that change their courses. Asterisk, the land rises in the north. It sinks in the south. The tilt is subtle, invisible in the span of a human life. But water notices, for water has no patience for memory. It flows only where gravity tells it to. And as the ground beneath it shifts, it must obey. Imagine a river, perhaps the Thames, or the Severn, or the Humber. To the eye, it feels timeless. Its channel seems permanent. Its bends eternal. But rivers are wanderers. They change more easily than land. And when the land itself tilts, the rivers answer with new paths. The Thames tells a story of obedience. Its valley once followed a different course entirely. It's flowing not through London, but northward toward the Wash. Then the land shifted, pressed and retreated, and the river bent into a new channel. What you see today, the Thames curling through. The heart of the capital is not destiny. It is adjustment. The river remembers where the land allows it to flow. The Severn, broad and restless, offers another lesson. Its estuary swells with the second highest tides in the world, but its shape is a product of tilt and rebound. As the land rises and sinks, the Severn spreads its waters differently, flooding plains, carving new banks, pushing inland with each subtle change. The river is not master. It is servant to the tilting ground. Even the Humber, wide and brown with sediment, follows the quiet command of isostacy. The north lifts, the south leans, and the Humber shifts with them, reshaping its channels, redrawing its marshes to live. Beside such rivers is to live beside change. And yet most who walk their banks believe them eternal. There is humility in watching a river. It flows with confidence, but its confidence belongs to gravity, to the tilt of land, to the balance of earth beneath it. When the land rises, the water retreats. When the land sinks, the water advances. Rivers may seem to wander freely, but they are bound by the slowest of masters. Science traces these adjustments with patience. A millimeter of tilt here, a shift in gradient there, and the course of a river changes over centuries. It may abandon one valley for another. It may carve new channels where once there was meadow. It may drown farmland or reveal ancient forests long buried beneath silt, all because the land itself moves and the water must follow. Imagine lying beside a northern loch. Its waters are calm. The mountains reflect in still glass, but beneath that stillness, the land is rising. Over centuries, the loch will drain more quickly. Its outlet river will cut a deeper path. The waters will slip into a new valley. The loch does not know it yet, but its course is not eternal. It belongs to the tilt of land. In the south, the opposite unfolds. Where the land sinks, rivers grow sluggish. Their gradients lessen. Their flow spreads wider. Floodplains expand. The Somerset levels tell this truth. Here, rivers stretch lazily across fields. Ditches and drains are carved by human hands, yet the sea still presses inward, 'cause the land is sinking, and the rivers cannot resist. What seems like flood is not only weather, it is geology. It is the earth adjusting, the rivers responding. The patience of rivers mirrors the patience of stone. Neither resists the balance. Both yield to it. One slowly, the other immediately. Stone takes millennia to shift. Rivers obey at once, and yet across time they dance together. Land lifts. Water flows differently. The channel shifts. Tainu Valley forms. The island is reshaped, not just by ice and rock, but by water, finding new ways to obey. Scientists trace these shifts in maps. Ancient riverbeds, now dry, lie hidden beneath soil. Buried forests reveal where waters once ran. Fossil estuaries lie inland, far from the sea that once filled them. Each is a reminder. Rivers remember too, not in stone, but in scars of silt and sand. Consider the fens of eastern England, flat, fertile, yet precarious. They were once marshes, then drained by human effort. But the sinking south and the tilting island make their rivers unstable. There, waters eager to return. What was reclaimed can be surrendered again. The land sinks, the rivers listen, the water obeys. There is a strange peace in this obedience. Rivers do not argue with gravity. They do not resist tilt. They follow, always, and as they follow, they write new landscapes. They redraw coastlines. They shape where people live and where they must leave. The quiet tilt of the land is amplified by the ceaseless flow of water. Imagine walking along a riverbank today. The water moves steadily, lapping against reeds, curling around bends carved long ago. But imagine, too, that the river you see is temporary, that centuries from now it may flow elsewhere, that its banks may dry, its valley abandoned, its waters loyal to another path. This is not tragedy. 8. It is patience. It is the earth reminding you that nothing is fixed. The rivers of Britain are older than villages, older than castles, older even than languages, and yet they change, because the land beneath them changes. It is a rhythm too slow to see, but it is there, always, and as rivers alter their courses, the story deepens still. Because the tilt of land, the rise of stone, the obedience of water, all come from something even deeper. Beneath rivers and rocks, beneath crust and coastline, the mantle itself moves, not in rushing floods, not in violent quakes, but in slow, hidden pressure. A deep adjustment, redistributing the weight of the earth's skin. And so the journey continues. Downward now, to the hidden pressure below. Asterisk above, rivers obey the tilt of land. They shift, they wander, they bend. But beneath rivers, beneath rock and crust, a deeper story is unfolding. The ground is not solid all the way down. Beneath the crust lies the mantle, a vast, hidden layer, slow, heavy, and alive with pressure. It is here, silence and darkness, that the true balance of the earth is kept. The mantle is strange. It is not hard stone, nor is it liquid. It is something between a substance that flows only over immense time. To your eyes, it would look solid, okay? A mass of rock pressed into immensity, but given patience, it bends, creeps. It yields like taffy left in warmth, like honey spreading across a plate. This is where the weight of ice once pressed. This is where the memory of burden is stored. This is where the rebound begins. Imagine Britain during the Ice Age. Miles of ice pressed downward, the crust bent like a raft. The mantle beneath flowed away, displaced by the burden above. Now, with the ice gone, the mantle flows back, filling the space that was pressed aside. It is this slow return, this redistribution, that pushes the land upward in the north and tips the south toward the sea. The mantle's motion is invisible to human senses. You do not feel it beneath your feet. You do not hear its pressure. But science reveals its presence in patient ways, in gravity fields that shift, in earthquakes that whisper of tension, in GPS signals that notice the crust inch upward. The mantle does not roar. It murmurs. Its murmur shapes entire continents. Think of it as a hidden ocean. The crust floats upon it, not as rigid land, but as buoyant rafts of stone. When glaciers add their weight, the rafts sink. When glaciers melt, the rafts rise. The mantle flows beneath them, redistributing pressure, balancing the surface above. This is isostacy, played out not in rivers or coastlines, but in the deep heart of the earth itself. There is patience here, beyond comprehension. A glacier melts in thousands of years. The mantle responds in tens of thousands. The memory of ice outlasts the ice itself. Even now, long after the last glacier retreated, the mantle is still adjusting, still pushing Britain toward balance. Every millimeter of rise in Scotland, every millimeter of sink in the south, comes from this hidden pressure. Asterisk pause and imagine you could sink through the earth, through fields and soil, through bedrock and fault lines, into the mantle's slow depths. You would find darkness, silence, and motion so slow it feels like stillness. But, over centuries, that stillness flows. It pushes crust upward. It pulls crust downward. It balances the forgotten weight of ice. The mantle is not still, it is only patient. Asterisk scientists use metaphors to understand it. They compare it to tar, to honey, to warm glass that bends under its own weight. But the mantle is heavier than any of these. It holds the pressure of the whole earth. Its flow is the foundation of continents, and yet it yields to glaciers. It yields to weight. It yields and it remembers. This hidden pressure shapes more than rebound. It is the reason volcanoes rise. It is the reason earthquakes shake. It is the engine beneath plate tectonics, though you do not feel it. The mantle is alive with slow convection, vast sails of rock flowing like water on an unimaginable timescale. It carries heat from the Earth's core. It circulates like breath. It reshapes the surface silently, forever. For Britain, this pressure reveals itself quietly. No volcanoes erupt from it here. No great rift tears the land. Instead, it is the tilt of coasts, the rise of highlands, the sinking of floodplains. The mantle does not speak in fire. It speaks in millimeters. There is humility in this, to realize that beneath every step, miles of stone are bending. That the crust you call solid is floating on motion. You walk upon patience itself. You build cities upon the memory of ice. You sleep above a mantle that flows without end. Even fossils feel its touch. For as the land lifts and tips, layers of stone are tilted too. Ancient bones, forests, and shorelines buried for millennia are revealed again. The mantle's hidden pressure brings the past to the surface. The story of life is reshaped by the story of ice and stone. Pause and imagine the land as a great chest. It rises slowly, like breath returning after long effort. Each inhalation takes centuries. Each exhalation, millennia. The mantle is the lung. The crust is the rib cage. The island is the breath, and you live upon that breath, carried upward and downward, never knowing the motion that holds you. Science watches this hidden pressure carefully. Seismographs notice its quakes. Satellites record its shifts. Gravity itself changes subtly as the mantle moves. The mantle's voice is quiet, but it is never silent, and through its voice, the island adjusts. The memory of glaciers lingers not only in stone, not only in rivers, but deep beneath, in mantle pressure redistributing slowly. It is here that the balance begins. It is here that the lifting and sinking are born. It is here that the UK, tilting still, finds its motion, and from this pressure, from this slow rising, comes another gift of memory. For as the land adjusts, as it breathes and tips, it uncovers what was once hidden, the fossils of the last ice age, the bones and forests waiting quietly beneath. Asterisk, the land remembers ice not only in stone, not only in tilt and pressure, but also in what it reveals as it moves. For when the ground rises, and when rivers carve new paths, and when coastlines lean into the sea, things long buried come back to light. These are the fossils of the last ice age. Imagine walking along a beach after a storm. The tide has cut deeper than usual. The sand is stripped away, and in its place lies something older, a bone thick and ancient, or the stump of a tree long hidden beneath the shore. These are not accidents. T are reminders. K, they are pieces of memory brought up by the land's slow shifting dot in the peat bogs of East Anglia. Farmers have uncovered the tusks of mammoths, the bones of woolly rhinoceroses, the skulls of giant deer. These animals once roamed freely across Britain, wandering through cold grasslands, drinking from rivers swollen with meltwater, grazing where today villages and fields lie. The glaciers shaped the land, but life filled it, and when the ice retreated, the land buried what was left. Now, as the south tilts, as coasts erode, as rivers shift, those bones return to light. Imagine a mammoth standing where London now spreads. Its shaggy coat brushes against frost-bitten air. It lowers its head to graze. Nearby, reindeer cross the plains, and wolves trail silently behind. This was Britain in the age of ice. Not silent, not empty, but alive with creatures that seemed eternal, yet vanished with the warming of the earth. Their bones remain, waiting in peat and clay, revealed as the land adjusts. Forests, too, return from memory. Along coasts, storms sometimes strip away sand to reveal the blackened stumps of trees, still rooted in soil, though long drowned by rising seas. These are drowned forests, remnants of ancient woodlands that grew when sea levels were lower, when Britain was broader, when land stretched further into what is now the North Sea. You can walk among these stumps at low tide. You can place your hand on bark that died thousands of years ago. The trees whisper of a world reshaped by ice, a world where coasts lay far beyond today's maps. Even more haunting are the remains of Doggerland, a vast plain that once connected Britain to Europe. During the Ice Age, sea levels were lower. The North Sea was not water, but land. Rivers wound across it. People and animals wandered its grasslands. As the glaciers melted, the sea advanced. Doggerland drowned, leaving only fragments beneath the waves. Fishermen still pull up bones from its buried fields. Mammoth teeth, tools of early humans, pieces of a landscape now lost. The tilt of Britain, the sinking of the South, the rising seas all continue this drowning. But the fossils remind us of what was once there. There is poetry in these revelations. The land shifts quietly, but in doing so, it exhales memory. Every tusk, every bone, every drowned tree is part of the earth remembering aloud. Scientists study these fossils carefully. They trace the pollen in drowned soils, discovering what plants once grew. They examine bones for marks of tools, remnants of human hands at work. They use radiocarbon to measure time, to place each fossil in the long rhythm of change. From these, a picture emerges. Britain, not as an island, but as part of a vast plain, alive with animals, inhabited by early humans, a world erased, yet still, whispering through fossils. The fossils do more than tell of life. They reveal how the land moves. When mammoth bones surface in East Anglia, it is because erosion cuts deeper. When drowned forests appear on beaches, it is because tides reach further. When Doggerland fossils rise from nets, it is because the seabed tilts and shifts. Each fossil is a marker of glacial rebound, of isostacy at work, of memory written not only in stone, but in life. Imagine again a storm pulling back the sand. You kneel, brush the soil away, and touch a branch that last grew before the sea arrived. The land has spoken. The fossil is its voice. There is humility in this, because fossils remind you that life itself bends to the earth. Animals migrate, forests drown, people move, as the ground rises and falls. The tilt of Britain is not only geology, it is also biography, the biography of every creature that walked here. Even in caves, fossils record this memory. Kenad dens in Yorkshire hold the bones of lions, creatures far from the Africa you imagined them in. Key, they lived here once. When? The land allowed it, when the tilt and climate made space. Now their bones are pressed into stone, waiting for human hands to uncover them. The fossils of the last ice age are not relics of silence. They are reminders that Britain was once a different land, alive with different animals, shaped by different coasts. The land you walk today is temporary. It is one chapter in a story of change. And fossils are the bookmarks left behind as pages turn. Pause and imagine the island itself as a library. Each layer of soil is a shelf. Each fossil is a book. Most remain closed, buried deep. But as the land tilts, some are pulled down, opened again, read by curious eyes. The story is always the same. The earth moves, life follows, memory endures. And as you linger with these fossils, you begin to feel the larger pattern, the north rising, the south sinking, the rivers bending, the fossils surfacing. The island is not still. It tilts as one body, a nation balanced on ancient scars. This is the tilt of a nation, and it is where the journey flows next. Asterisk, the island breathes in stone. The north rises with slow strength. The south tips gently into the sea. This balance, born of forgotten ice, is the tilt of a nation. When you picture Britain, you imagine an island steady and whole. Maps show clear boundaries, the north, the south, the coasts and rivers, the mountains and plains. But the map is only a moment. The land itself is moving, tilting quietly, leaning like a raft upon an unseen tide. This tilt is not dramatic. You cannot feel it beneath your feet, but it is steady. It is real. Think of a seesaw in a quiet park. One side rises, the other falls. The motion is gentle, yet unmistakable. The British Isles are that seesaw. Scotland lifts, England tips. The island is not still. It is pivoting slowly, ever so slightly, balancing memory with motion. This tilt carries consequences. Rivers obey it, changing their courses. Floodplains widen. Valleys deepen. The seas advance in the south, while in the north, new shorelines are revealed. The tilt is both creator and destroyer, lifting some lands into air, surrendering others to the sea. Asterisk, pause for a moment and imagine the whole island resting on a giant fulcrum, like a seesaw placed upon the back of the earth. On one side, Scotland rises skyward. On the other, Kent and Cornwall tip seaward. The balance is delicate, but it is constant. This is not imagination. It is isostacy, written large, a continent shifting its weight, seeking equilibrium. The tilt of Britain has been measured carefully. Satellites watch it. GPS stations listen. Tide gauges record the sea's quiet advance in the south, while ancient beaches rise higher in the north. The numbers confirm the poetry. The nation is leaning. Consider the evidence left behind. In Scotland, beaches lie stranded above today's sea. Raised shorelines formed when land was pressed low by ice. Now they perch high on cliff sides, silent witnesses of a sea that once reached them. Meanwhile, the south, villages stand at the edge of tides that creep further inland. Fields that were once dry lie beneath salt water. The land itself bows toward the sea, and the sea does not hesitate to enter. The tilt is not only physical, it is cultural. People adapt to its rhythm. In the north, harbors deepen as coasts rise, revealing new possibilities for settlement. In the south, defenses rise against the sea, walls, barriers, pumps. Human effort against a geological inevitability. Generations may not see the tilt directly, but they live within its consequences. There is humility in this realization. To know that your nation itself is not fixed, that it leans, that it breathes. It reminds you that the lines on a map are temporary. The land is not finished, 'tis still becoming. Imagine standing on Hadrian's Wall, that ancient boundary between north and south. The stones are weathered, the hills stretch beyond. Beneath you, the land itself is tilting. Not as wall against wall, but as one body adjusting. The whole of Britain is part of this breath. The tilt is gentle, yet it shapes the most intimate details of life. The flow of water, the spread of soil, the retreat of coastlines. It decides where harbors thrive, where floods persist, where fossils rise, where villages must retreat. Every choice of settlement, every risk of flood is tied to the slow tilt of the island itself. This tilt is not unique to Britain. Other nations tilt as well. But here, on this island, the story is sharp and visible because it was pressed so deeply and released so suddenly and now leans so delicately. The island itself has become a scale, measuring the memory of glaciers. Pause and imagine Britain not as land, but as a vessel at sea. The stern lifts, the bow tips. The ship is steady enough to sail, but its balance is always shifting. You live aboard this vessel. You walk its decks. You sleep as it tilts. You do not feel the movement, yet it carries you all the same. The tilt of a nation is not cause for alarm. It is simply nature continuing. But it is a reminder that nothing you stand upon is still. The north rises, the south sinks. The balance is delicate, endless, real. And from this tilt, coastlines reveal their truth. Eroded cliffs, sunken villages, beaches that creep inland, all are written by this slow lean. The land tips, the sea advances, and the edges of the island tell the clearest story of all. Asterisk, the tilt of a nation is subtle, is measured in millimeters, felt in centuries, and known through science. But at the edges of the island, where land meets sea, the tilt becomes visible. For coastlines are truth-tellers. They record what maps conceal. They reveal what stone hides. They show in cliffs and beaches and drowned fields that the land is never still. Imagine the cliffs of East Anglia. They stand white and brittle against the North Sea. Every storm takes more. Every tide cuts deeper. Houses, once built at safe distance, now fall into waves. It is not only erosion, it is tilt. The south leans downward, and the sea takes what it is offered. Travel west to the Somerset levels. Flat, broad, delicate, landscape of water as much as soil. For centuries, people drained and diked it, building channels and embankments to keep the sea away. But the tilt is patient. Each year, the land lowers. Each year, the tides advance. Floods stretch wider, reminding those who live there that the sea is winning. The coastlines reveal the quiet truth. This is not still land. Further east, the Thames estuary tells the same story. Its waters push further inland than before. Barrier stands against the tide, closing more often than its designers expected. Engineers plan, rebuild, prepare, but the tilt continues. It is not the sea alone that advances. It is the land itself that leans forward to meet it. In the north, the coastlines tell a different story. There, the land rises. Ancient beaches lie, stranded above today's sea. Terraces of sand and stonemark where waves once broke. Now they perch high witnesses of the ocean's retreat. Walk through parts of western Scotland, and you find these raised beaches like ghostly shores. They are proof that the sea once lay higher against the land. Not because the water has fallen, but because the land has risen. The north climbs skyward, and the coastlines write it plainly. There is something haunting about these double truths. In the south, the sea advances. In the north, it retreats. One island, two directions. The tilt is invisible inland, but at the coasts, it becomes undeniable. The sea writes the story clearly. The nation leans, villages are witnesses. Some once busy with harbors and homes, now swallowed by tide. Dunwich, once a thriving port on the Suffolk coast, is remembered now as a ghost town beneath the waves. Storms, erosion, and sinking land combined, and the sea took its place. Other villages face the same fate. Churches stand perilously close to the cliff edge. Roads end abruptly in air. The coastline speaks in ruins, but ruins are only one form of memory. In the north, the rising land reveals the opposite. Settlements that were once harbors now stand inland. Their piers stranded, their waters gone. The coastline pulls away from them. They become reminders of when the sea reached further. The coastlines are a mirror. They reflect the island's tilt with brutal honesty. No calculation is needed to see it. The cliffs erode. The beaches shift. The estuaries widen. The ancient terraces rise. They are the margins of the island. And margins always reveal the truth. There is humility in walking along these edges. You feel the fragility of land. You realize the permanence of maps is false. The border between land and sea is not a line. It's a conversation, a negotiation, a shifting balance. The coastlines whisper. Nothing is fixed. Not villages, not fields, not cliffs. Scientists study these edges with patience. They map erosion rates, measure the rise of tides, trace the lifting of northern shores. Each measurement is a sentence in a longer story. Each coastline reveals not only its own fate, but the fate of the whole island. And yet, coastlines are not only warnings. They are teachers too. They remind you that the island is alive, that it is still becoming, that it is not finished. For every cliff that falls, a beach is built elsewhere. For every estuary that floods, a salt marsh grows. For every drowned forest revealed by the tide, new sediments bury fresh memory. The edge of the island is not only loss, it is also renewal. Pause and imagine walking a beach at dawn. The tide has drawn back, revealing driftwood shells, perhaps something older, a dark stump from a drowned forest, bone from a mammoth long buried. The sea has shifted the sand. The land has tilted. Memory lies at your feet. The coastline has revealed its truth again. Every tide is a reminder. Every storm is a scribe. Every fallen cliff is a sentence. The coastlines write what the land itself feels. The tilt, the balance, the breath of ice long gone. And so the edges of the island tell you plainly, the land is not finished. It is still becoming. Asterisk, the cliffs erode, the rivers shift, the north rises, the south sinks. At the edges, the coastlines tell their truth. But even beyond the margins, the message is the same. This land is not finished. The United Kingdom, with its long history, its castles and villages, its roads and cities, feels ancient to human eyes. Yet, to the earth, it is still becoming. Think of time not in centuries, but in millions of years. In that scale, Britain is young. It has been joined and separated from Europe more than once. It has been covered by seas, by swamps, by glaciers. What you see now, green hills, chalk cliffs, rivers winding to estuaries, is only the current chapter. The island is still writing itself. Stone records this becoming. Sandstones tell of ancient deserts. Chalk tells of shallow seas, alive with plankton. Coal tells of forests that thrived before ice. Granite tells of magma cooling deep below. Every rock in Britain is a page of becoming. Together, they form a book, not yet finished. And now, in the wake of ice, new pages are being written. The land is lifting in the north, sinking in the south, reshaping itself with every tide and storm, even as you walk across it. The ground is adjusting, patiently, quietly. Imagine the highlands rising slowly, the mantle pushing them upward. Imagine the Somerset levels tipping further into sea. Imagine rivers carving new paths through valleys. None of this is complete. All of it is still becoming. To humans, history feels long. Stone circles, Roman roads, medieval castles. They seem immovable, eternal. But to the earth, these are brief scratches. They sit upon land that has changed for millions of years, will change for millions more. A cathedral may stand for 1,000 years, but the land beneath it rises or sinks. The coastline nearby erodes. The river shifts its course. Human permanence rests upon geological becoming. Science sees this clearly. Case stations, tide gauges, fossils, and terraces all revealed the motion. The UK is not fixed. It is a landscape still being shaped, a body still in motion. The north is not done rising. The south is not done sinking. The rivers are not done wandering. The cliffs are not done retreating. This is the patience of geology. This is land still becoming. There is humility in this, because it reminds you that permanence is an illusion. The fields you see today were once forests. The coasts you walk today were once plains. The valleys you know today were once carved by ice, and tomorrow they will become something else. Pause and imagine the island breathing. Inhale, the north rises. Exhale, the south sinks. With each slow breath, the shape changes. You live within this breath. You build upon it. You measure your life against its stillness, but the stillness is temporary. The land is alive with becoming. Even the fossils remind you of this. Mammoths and reindeer once walked here. Forests stretched where the North Sea now lies. Humans hunted across Doggerland, land that is now drowned. What feels final is never final. The earth always writes again. And so the UK, though ancient to your eyes, is still an island in the making. It will rise, sink, tilt, erode. It will continue to breathe beneath your feet. There is comfort in this thought, because it means you belong to something larger. You walk upon a story still unfolding. You rest upon a land that is alive. You're part of the becoming. Imagine standing on a cliff at dusk. The waves break below. The wind carries the salt of the sea. The land beneath you feels steady, but it is not. It is adjusting, tilting. It's healing from the weight of forgotten ice. It is still becoming. And so, are you? And from this recognition flows the next chapter. The future of what the land's becoming means for people. For rivers, for cities, for plains that wait quietly for water. For as the south sinks, floodplains widen. The future of Britain is written not only in rising land, but in advancing seas. The land is still becoming, and floodplains are its next message. Asterisk, the land is still becoming. It rises in the north, it sinks in the south. The tilt is quiet, but its consequences are loudest where rivers meet the sea. For there, on the margins, floodplains stretch wide. And as the land leans downward, those floodplains grow. Imagine a floodplain. It is not only a place of disaster, it is also a place of fertility. Floods bring silt, rivers spread life, plains bloom green when waters retreat. Civilizations across the world have been born upon floodplains. The Nile, the Tigris, the Ganges. Britain, too, carries this pattern. The Thames, the Severn, the Humber, each estuary holds lowlands shaped by water, each vulnerable to the tilt of land. The Thames floodplain is perhaps the most famous. London rests within it, a city layered with history, a city bound to the river's slow rise and fall. When the south sinks, the floodplain does not remain the same. It spreads, the tides advance, the barrier closes more often. The maps of safety redraw themselves. The future of London is tied not only to climate, not only to sea level rise, but also to the ancient memory of glaciers still shaping the tilt of the island. Travel west, and the Somerset levels tell their story. Flat, fertile, fragile, drained by human hands for centuries, but always at risk. Here, floods arrive with winter storms, filling fields, isolating villages, turning roads into rivers. The tilt of the land worsens this. The south tips downward, the sea presses inward, and the floodplain grows wider each generation. It is not catastrophe at once, but patience, a warning stretched over centuries. Further north, the Humber estuary whispers the same truth. Its marshes, broad and low, serve as both shield and sacrifice. When tides rise, they absorb the water. When storms come, they flood first, as the land. continues its tilt. These marshes expand, pulling the floodplain further inland. Villages adjust, farmers adapt, but the balance continues to change. The future of floodplains is a future of surrender to water, tilt, to time, and yet, floodplains are not only risk, they are also renewal. The very soil that makes them vulnerable is also what makes them rich. Floods bring nutrients, they build farmland, they sustain life. The danger is matched by gift. The risk is paired with fertility. Teed, it has always been this way, but as the land tips more deeply, as the seas press harder, the balance shifts. The gift becomes harder to hold, the risk heavier to bear. Scientists trace these changes carefully. They measure tides at estuaries. They map how far floods now reach compared to centuries ago. They watch satellites that record the tilt of land. The story is clear. Floodplains are widening. The south leans deeper and water spreads further. The warning is not sudden. It is stretched across decades, but it is insistent. Pause and imagine a map of Britain in the centuries to come. The north rises, its coasts sharpen, its old beaches lifted inland. The south sinks, its estuaries widen, its floodplains advance like ink spreading across paper. London holds the Thames. Somerset holds its levels. East Anglia holds its coasts. Each one is ridden by water that obeys the tilt of the land. There is humility in this truth, that the ground you build upon is not fixed, that cities, no matter how vast, are bound to rivers, to tides, to the patient tilt of geology. Floodplains remind you that nature writes the map more than humans do, and yet humanity adapts. Barriers rise, dikes extend, pumps work tirelessly. London builds walls against the tide. Villages in Somerset lift their houses. Farmers near the Humber adjust their fields. The story of floodplains is also the story of human persistence, resisting water, living with it, accepting its rhythm. But the tilt of the land continues, patient and unstoppable. The future of floodplains is not only about risk, it is about recognition. Recognition that Britain is alive, that its land moves, that water will always answer. Floodplains will widen, some will drown, others will shift, but they are part of the island's becoming. Pause and imagine standing at the edge of a flooded plain. The water is calm, spreads like a mirror, reflecting the sky. It is quiet, not violent, and yet it is a message. The land has tilted, the sea has answered. The plain is becoming water once more. Floodplains are warnings, but they are also part of the patient pace of change. Not fast, not sudden, but steady, endless, real. And so the meditation flows naturally into the rhythm of time itself, into the calm reminder that the earth changes, not with haste, but with patience. The land sinks, the floodplain spreads, the earth breathes, and change continues, always at the patient pace of change. Asterisk, floodplains widen, the south lowers, the north rises. The coastlines retreat or advance, but none of this happens quickly. None of this is sudden. The earth moves at its own pace, slow, patient, unhurried. This is the patient pace of change to human eyes. The land feels still. You walk across a field today, and tomorrow it seems unchanged. You stand at a cliff, and a decade later it looks the same. But beneath this stillness, change is always happening. The ground lifts or sinks by millimeters. The river bends by degrees. The coastline shifts by meters across a century. Not violent, not fast, but steady, endless, real. Imagine a clock that ticks once every 1,000 years. That is the clock the earth follows. Its hands move so slowly that lifetimes pass without notice. But in the span of millennia, whole landscapes are remade. Forests vanish, plains drown, cliffs retreat, mountains rise. The patient pace of change writes the true history of the earth. The last ice age ended only yesterday in geological terms. 10,000 years have passed, and still the land is adjusting. Still the north rises, still the south sinks. The patience of stone is greater than ice, greater than rivers, greater than seas. It carries its adjustments into millennia. There is humility in recognizing this, that your years, your decades, are brief moments in a far slower rhythm. Generations build villages and cities, believing the land is permanent. But each generation inherits a slightly different island, a river a little wider, a floodplain a little deeper, a coastline a little further inland, a mountain a little higher against the sky. Each generation writes story upon a land already changing beneath it. The patient pace of change is not violent. It is not catastrophic. It is a quiet persistence. Stone rises, soil shifts, seas advance, forests spread or drowned. Always, always, the land is becoming. Pause and imagine a map of Britain drawn every 1,000 years. Each map looks familiar, but not the same. In one, coasts stretch further. In another, the sea cuts deeper into the south. In another, the north stands taller, speeches stranded higher above the waves. The outline shifts gently, like breathing. Over time, the shape of the island itself becomes a story of patience. Science captures this with numbers. A millimeter per year, a centimeter per decade, a meter across centuries. But numbers only hint at the rhythm. The truth is more poetic. The earth does not rush. It does not demand. It simply moves, slowly, steadily, without end. Consider the raised beaches of Scotland. They reveal not only the rise of land, but also the speed of patience. It took thousands of years for those terraces to climb above the sea, or the drowned villages of the south. They reveal how floods creep forward, not in storms alone, but in steady encroachment, inch by inch, tide by tide. This is not catastrophe. It is persistence. It's a quiet insistence of time. There is comfort in this pace, because it means the earth is resilient, bends, it heals, it remembers, but it does not rush. Your life may feel urgent, your years may feel hurried, but the ground beneath you is calm. Kate moves without haste. It reminds you that change can be steady, gentle, patient. Imagine lying in a meadow. The grass sways, the clouds drift. The air is still. Beneath you, the land is rising, sinking, tilting. You cannot feel it, but you are carried by it. You are part of its motion. Its patience holds you. The patient pace of change teaches you that permanence is an illusion. It shows you that even the island, ancient as it seems, is still new to the earth. It reminds you that the land is alive, that it breathes, that it exhales slowly after the burden of forgotten ice. And so the story continues. From the tilt of the nation, to the truth of the coastlines, to the widening of floodplains, to the patience of time itself. The next chapter flows naturally, for if the land changes so slowly, then it must also breathe, not in air, but in stone, in soil, in hills, in valleys, in coasts, in rivers, a landscape that breathes. The patient pace of change tells you that nothing is still. And when you see the island this way, its slow rising and sinking, its tilt and its floods, you begin to sense something larger. The island itself is breathing, not as you breathe, not with lungs, not with air, but in the rhythm of stone. A breath stretched across millennia, an inhale and exhale written in coastlines, in rivers, in hills. Britain is a landscape that breathes. Think of the north as an inhale. Scotland, once pressed down, now rises upward. a chest expanding after weight is lifted. Each millimeter of rise is like the slow filling of lungs. Think of the South as an exhale. England tips downward, fields surrender to floodplains, coastlines bow toward the sea. It is the long release of pressure, the exhalation of land. Together, inhale and exhale, north and south, create the island's breath. Pause and imagine standing in the highlands. The air is crisp, the mountains tower, the locks glimmer. You feel still, but the ground beneath you is lifting a breath you cannot sense, yet one you're a part of. Now imagine standing in the Somerset levels. The land feels flat, fragile, always close to water. It tips quietly into the sea. This, too, is breath, the slow exhale of a burdened island. Rivers carry this rhythm. They bend, shift, widen, adjusting with each tilt of land. They are the blood vessels of the island, flowing where gravity tells them to, reminding you that every breath has circulation. Coastlines carry it too. In the north, they rise and retreat from the sea. In the south, they sink and surrender. Each wave against an cliff is like the pulse of breath against the edges of lungs. Hills and valleys record this breathing most poetically. A hill rises slowly with a lifting crust. A valley deepens as rivers obey the tilt. Together, they reshape the landscape in the rhythm of inhale and exhale. You may not see it in your lifetime. If you step back into geological time, you see hills swelling, valleys shifting, coasts advancing and retreating. As though the entire island moves like a living body. Even the mantle beneath participates. Its slow flow is the diaphragm, the deep muscle pushing the crust upward, letting it sink downward. The mantle breathes without haste, and the island responds above. The last ice age forced a long, deep inhalation. The glaciers pressed, the land sank, the breath was held. Now the ice is gone. The exhale has begun. The north rises back, the south releases downward. The island breathes again, freer, lighter. There is beauty in this rhythm, because it means the land is not dead. It is not inert. It is alive with movement, alive with patience. You walk upon a breathing body of stone. You live upon an inhale, an exhale that stretches across 10,000 years. Pause and imagine the land as a giant creature asleep. Its chest rises Scotland, lifting. Its chest falls England, sinking. It breathes in soil, in valleys, in estuaries, in coasts. You are small upon its surface, but you belong to its breath. Science confirms this rhythm. GPS stations measure the millimeters. Raised beaches and drowned villages mark the motion of past breaths. Floodplains stretch like lungs expanding. The numbers tell you what the poetry already sensed. The island is breathing, and with each breath it reveals memory. Fossils surface in peat. Forests reappear on drowned coasts. Duggan whispers from beneath the sea. The inhale and exhale uncover the past, bringing reminders of what once lived here. The breath is not only motion, it is revelation. There is humility in knowing this, because it reminds you that what feels fixed, the shape of hills, the path of rivers, the edge of coasts, is not fixed at all. It is changing, becoming, breathing. Imagine lying on the ground, the grass brushing your cheek, the soil firm beneath your hand. It feels still, but beneath, the land is adjusting, slowly exhaling its burden. You're resting on breath. You are resting on movement. You are resting on patience. The UK is not a finished island. It is not a static nation. It is a body in motion, a landscape that breathes. This breath will not end soon. The north will continue to rise. The south will continue to sink. Floodplains will widen. Coastlines will retreat. The breath is long, but it is endless. And as you sense this breath, you begin to realize, to stand here, to live here, is to stand upon moving ground. It is not finished. It is never still. It is always breathing beneath you. The next step of the journey is simple, to recognize that even as you sleep, even as you walk, even as you live, you are standing on moving ground. Asterisk, the island breathes. The north rises, the south tips, the rivers shift, the coasts reveal their truth. You have walked through these chapters, through ice and rebound, through fossils and floods, through patience and breath, and now you arrive at the simplest truth of all. You are standing on moving ground. It does not feel that way. Beneath your feet, the soil is firm. Streets and stones appear steady. Mountains look immovable. Coastlines eternal. But they are not. They are shifting, slowly, steadily, always. You are never standing still. This motion is not violent. It does not shake you awake. It does not roar. It is patient. It's quiet. It's the pace of stone. Every step you take is taken upon crust that floats, upon mantle that flows, upon a memory of ice that has not yet healed. The island tilts beneath you, and you do not notice. Pause and imagine the ground like a raft. You walk across it, unaware that it drifts. You sleep upon it, unaware that it breathes. The raft does not hurry. It does not sink or rise in sudden leaps. It balances slowly, unceasingly. This is the ground beneath your life. This is what it means to stand on moving ground. Science shows it clearly. GPS stations whispered the millimeters. Tide gauges confirmed the sea's advance. Raised beaches drowned. Forests buried bones. All are proof that the land is not still. The data speaks quietly, but it agrees with the poetry. The nation moves. Generations inherit this motion. One generation builds walls against tides. Another uncovers fossils of mammoths. Another redraws maps of rivers. Each believes they live in permanence. Each discovers, sooner or later, that permanence is an illusion. Every generation stands on ground that is moving. There is humility in this, because it reminds you that you belong to a story larger than memory, that your life is brief against. The patience of stone set every home, every city, every nation is built upon motion. Maps may claim finality. Buildings may rise in confidence, but beneath them, the land continues to tilt. Imagine standing in London. Beneath your feet, the Thames estuary slowly tips deeper. The barrier holds back water, but the land itself leans. Imagine standing in Edinburgh. The highlands around you rise by millimeters each year. Their roots stretch upward. Their cliffs climb higher. Both are true. Both are real. Both belong to the same breath. Even now, as you read, as you rest, as you breathe, the land beneath you is moving. Not enough to feel, but enough to matter. You are being lifted in the north, lowered in the south, carried in the balance of isostacy. The ground is never still. Think of how small this makes you feel. And yet, how connected, because you, too, are part of this motion. Your bones rest upon stone. Stone rests upon mantle. Mantle flows beneath the memory of ice. You are not outside of it. You are inside the breath of the island. The moving ground is not threat. It is simply reminder that you live within. Time that you belong to patience, that you walk upon history as it continues. Every path you take is part of a story. Every step is upon land still adjusting. Every pause is a moment upon a raft that drifts. You live in motion, and though the tilt will continue, though the seas will advance in the south, though the north will climb higher, this is not ending. It is becoming. The island is not done. Neither are you. Pause and listen inward. You breathe. The island breathes. The earth breathes. The rhythm is endless. It connects you to stone, to mantle, to ice, to oceans. You are standing on moving ground, but you are also carried by it, held by it, part of it. And so the meditation closes, not with finality, but with continuation. The island will keep rising. It will keep sinking. It will keep tilting, breathing, becoming. You will keep standing upon it, living upon it, sleeping upon it. Even now, as you close your eyes, as you drift into rest, the ground beneath you moves. It is not done, and neither are we.